Welcome, everybody, to 52 Living Ideas. Today is the finale of our Gita meetups with Yogeshwar. It's been just amazing, and we will comment on that, towards the end. If you have any comments about this entire series, about any feedback for Yogeshwar, about what you got from it, you're welcome to speak at length at that. But we have got 3 chapters to summarize. So we're going to start with that. So it'll be Yogeshwar talking about chapter 16, 17, 18. Once he's done speaking, I'm going to make comments based on whatever I heard from him, very short comments, and then we'll go to the next chapter. After we are done with chapter 18, we will open it up for comments and questions on the entire series. So I encourage you to comment at this time, at that time, because we would love to know exactly what we got from it. And don't worry, this is not the end. This is the end of the beginning, because we will be doing monthly Gita meetups to continue to build on whatever we have achieved so far. All right. So with that, Yogeshwar, please go ahead.
Atha Shodashodhyayah. The 16th chapter talks about Deva and Asura Sampat. What does it mean to be a Devi? And what does it mean to be Asuri? Both of them are there in this world. Both types of people are there in this world. And both qualities are there within one person as well. How to know what those qualities are? And then, having known them, we are going to learn what they mean in abstract as well. Because sometimes you can really know you can know that I am in anger, but then under that anger, there's something else. There's a desire that is going on. That is why this anger is there. It's not just the anger that you have to know. You have to know the basics of any type of quality, why it arises. First, starting with a story about how Devi and Asura Sampad are. So when the war of Mahabharata was said to be like it is going to happen, there is no option now. At that time, both the Pandavas and the Kauravas, they were looking for the kings who would fight from their side. They had gone to their relatives, their friends, and then they came to Krishna. So what happened when they came to Krishna was that Arjuna came and sat at the feet of Krishna, and Duryodhana came and sat just like, because Krishna was just asleep and he was just about to wake up. It was just about the right time for Krishna to wake up. And Arjuna was seated at his feet on the bed, and Duryodhana sat just right near his face, like just there. We can see this from here, that what Duryodhana wants to show Krishna is that I am here, look at me. Yeah. And when he opens his eyes, he should see me first, nobody else. However, when Krishna wakes up, his eyes first go towards the person who is seated at his feet, who is Arjuna. And then he asks Arjuna, what have you come here for? Arjuna says that it's the same that Duryodhana has come here for, and it is to ask for your help, for you to fight by our side. So then Krishna said that whichever side I fight from, but just know, if I fight, my whole army, which is Narayani Sena, the Narayani army, will fight from the other side. So I will be on one side and my army will be on the other side. I won't keep my army with me. Then Duryodhan had his heartbeat rise, like, really, what will now Arjuna will obviously ask for the army which is larger. Now, first here, before even the decision comes, let's see, because the context here is Devi and Asuri Sampat. A person who has Devi Sampat, what will he do? And a person who has Asuri Sampat, what will he do? Person who has Devi Sampat will will always be in worship, will always be in prayer. Like, he will know the people who are more important than themselves. They will know the value of people or things. However, the person who is Asuri Sampat, what they will do is, whatever the person is, that's fine. I should be able to extract value from them. I should be able to get whatever I want from them. That is my main aim. Then the other thing also is that Duryodhana wanted himself to be seen. Whenever a person wants to be seen more than his value, like he just wants to be seen, then we know that now he's tilting towards the Asuri Sampat. Whereas Arjuna was okay just to sit at the feet, not be seen first, and he was just there. However, what happens is, when a person is so humble to sit at the feet, he is seen first. We have to note that he doesn't want to be seen first. That's why he sat at the feet. But then, that is a person who is seen first and is noticed by Krishna. Also, this decision of Krishna, where he says that my army will fight from the other side and I will fight from one side. What is Duryodhan thinking about at this point? Is that Arjuna will take what I want. So he's not come here for what Krishna is. No, he's come here to extract value. And whenever we feel like this, that I want to extract value from another person, then know that there is this Asuri Sampat going on. Then Arjuna made his decision and said that I ask for you, Krishna. Duryodhan was like, oh yes, like at least he asked for Krishna. In his mind, Duryodhana said that, look at how mudmati they are, hina buddhi. They do not have an intellect. They should have asked for the army. What will Krishna, only one person, be able to do? Rather, he would have asked for his army. They have already lost so many times because of the mudmati, the hin buddhi. But this time, he was given a chance, yet he lost it. Again, a comparison. When Duryodhana is saying that this person, like Arjuna, has asked for the wrong thing, it is from his perspective that Arjuna has asked for wrong thing. Because he is saying that what is the use of one person over so many people? Because the Narayani Sena had about 100 million people in its army, 100 million, and it was a quantity. And the Pandavas already knew that in quantity we are less in us in perspective to the Kauravas. They knew it. Duryodhan was happy because he was looking at the quantity of his army. He was saying, I have more people, I have more horses, I have more elephants to fight by my side, I have more commanders in chief who can fight by my side. Whereas Arjuna was looking for that one. And we should also be looking for that one. If we choose that one, everything else comes with it. And when I mean everything else comes with it, I don't mean that Krishna will fight with his army. No, Krishna will always be on the other side of his army. Know this, because we know that there is the samsara and there is the Brahman. When we choose Brahman, we have to leave the 10,000 things behind, and we have to choose the one which is not the 10,000 things. And whenever we choose the 10,000 things, we can never choose the one. This is the contrast here. So when we are facing the one, when we're choosing the one, if we choose the one, the 10,000 things may come, may not come. We should not have the perspective of them, either coming or not. We should be able to look at that one. And that one will help more than the 10,000. Who helped Arjuna when he had a turmoil going on in himself at the beginning of the war? This one who was Krishna, the one against the 10,000. And this perspective of being able to choose the one over the 10,000 things, being able to choose your own sakshi, to be able to choose your own being over the other things that you get from the world, the sense objects, the thoughts, the intellect that you get from the world, all the 10,000 things. Can you choose the right thing? That determines the Devi Sampat and the Asuri Sampat. And also to note that when Arjuna is taking this decision, he is taking this decision not to win. Yeah? He's not taking this decision to win. But when he takes the one, he may not get the 10,000 things, but he wins. Whereas Duryodhana, who has come to win, he will get so many things, but he will not win. At the end of the Yuddha, the Mahabharata war, who wins? The one who has chosen the one. However, we should also note that if we keep winning in perspective, like if Arjuna would also have thought that I should win and I should take more in quantity, then he would not have won. If you have the perspective of winning, then you will not win. If you have the perspective of choosing the right thing, then you will win. This is what it means by Devi and Asuri Sampat. So, Devi Sampat includes the Kshama, the forgiveness, the Ahimsa, and not trying to get so much out of a person. Yeah? You want to value the person for who that person is, not to just extract value from that person. Then, however, what a person of Asuri Sampat does, he says that I have gotten this, and this is what I have to get after this. Idamadhyamaya labdham imam prapse manoratham idamasti idamapi me bhavishyati punardhanam. This is Asuri Sampat. He's saying that this is what I have gotten, this is what I have to get in the future. This is who I am, and this is who I can be in the future, and what I can get. Bhavishyati punardhanam. This is the value I can get. When you have that within your mind, know that, are we choosing the right over the wrong? What are we doing? Even a person who has Asuri Sampat, because in this chapter, Asuri Sampat is detailed more than Devi Sampat. Another perspective of Asuri Sampat is ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham cha sansritaha mamatma paradeheshu pradvishanto bhyasuyakaha. He has ahankara, like we have seen in Duryodhana. I should be seen first. And then there's also the other perspective that when you want to be seen, you know you don't have value. That's why you want to be seen. When you're being seen is when you're able to say that, oh yes, somebody has given me the value I needed. Rather, a person who can be humble has all the value within himself. That's why he can be humble. He doesn't expect somebody else to give him his value. He has his value within him. That's why he can be humble. And if Duryodhana wants to be seen, and then when Arjuna is seen first, and Krishna says that I saw Arjuna first, Duryodhana says that I was seated just in front of you. You didn't see me first. How come? Yeah? Why so? Like, how can I be in front of your eyes and you do not see me? Krishna, in his mind, now this is in the Mahabharata, in his mind, he says that a person with ahankara is not a person, is not a person who is in himself and is not looking for the right thing. However many people see him, his own existence never sees himself. So Krishna is a symbol of existence itself, symbol of Brahman itself. Brahman doesn't see a person with ahankara, cannot see a person with ahankara. Ahankara is always a person who is full of himself. And Brahman doesn't see that person. Brahman only sees a person who is empty of himself, who is able to be humble, that however many values he has, still he's humble, that I need to get more value. I need to be humble because I do not have that much value within my own self. Then Krishna goes on to the 3 doors of Naraka, of bad deeds. What 3 doors lead you to bad deeds? Trividham narakasyedam dwaram nashanam kama krodhas tatha lobhas tasmadetattrayam tyajet. 3. Kama, krodha, lobha. If a person is working from any of these 3 perspectives, kama, which is, I'll start with lobha. Now, lobha is greed. You have so much greed. You may have so much money, but you cannot give it to another person. And you're always wanting to get more money than you have. Then krodha, anger. Anger, it can be of 2 perspectives. One, when you have not gotten something that you desired, you'll be angry at that force that has distracted you from getting to what you desire. That's one perspective of anger. Another perspective of anger is that you get angry when you get something that you don't desire, that you hate. When you hate something and then a force brings it to you, you start hating that force that brings that item to you. These are the 2 perspectives of anger. So desire and hate are behind anger. Now, Krishna says kamaha. Kamaha, which is also translated as desire, any type of desire that you have. Now, sometimes desire may be there, but then anger doesn't evolve. Why? Because you are able to get all what you desire. When you're able to get whatever you desire, anger will not arise. But then the desire is there. And in itself, it has that value of being wrong. And whenever a person is thinking from these perspectives, then what happens is he may give any type of logic that may be okay, but that logic will be an excuse for him to keep these three within himself. And whenever he's working from these three, Krishna is summarizing the Asuri Sampat, that these three are a summary of Asuri Sampat. If you are working from these three, then you are not working from the right place that you're supposed to work from. And if you choose the one over the 10,000 things, then you are the one with the Devi Sampat.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. I really like that you brought in this example of Krishna Arjun, because it just captures it beautifully. You know, Duryodhan reaches there a few minutes early, and he goes in the place of the highest honor. He says, how can I be at feet of anybody? I am great, so I have to be at the head. So he stands at the head. Arjun is full of humility, full of devotion for Krishna, and stands at the feet. Krishna gets up, sees him first, and says, what do you want? And he offers that choice. And for Arjun, it is not really, it's a very simple and direct choice. He's been choosing that all his life. He says, only Brahma. I want only Brahma. That's all. And for Duryodhana, he's very happy because he sees everything in the periphery, and that's all that he wants. So I thought that was just a brilliant way of capturing the essence of this chapter. Please go on.
Atha saptadashodhyayah. Now Arjuna is asking, they are these people who have so much Shraddha. Shraddha, meaning one thing about Shraddha is that you should not have anything that is pulling you towards your karma. Now, Shraddha is mainly related to karma. So first I'll explain in relation to karma, then we shall get it to in relation to Adhyatma. In relation to action, what Shraddha means is that you do not do anything in relation to what you're going to get in the future, what the fruit is. Shraddha means that you do an action for its own value, that action holds value. That's why you're doing it. And when a person, Arjuna is asking, when a person has so much Shraddha, he can do a lot, like he has a lot of potential for action. However, he is not following the scriptures. What happens to that person? Tesham nishtha tu ka Krishna. What happens to that person? Where is he seated? Yeah? Then Krishna, as always, starts with the detailed answer. Because whenever we go to Krishna, he never gives like yes or no answer, because there is no yes or no answer. It's always about your understanding. If you understand it right, then you've gotten it. It's not just about yes or no. So Krishna says that Shraddha is always of three types. It's not of one type. Shraddha can be seen from the lens of Sattvika, Rajasa, and Tamasa. And the type of Shraddha a person has is reflected from his own being. It's like when a person has a type of Shraddha, it is what he will become as well. If a person has a Rajasa type of Shraddha, he will become a Rajasa type of person. If he can only do action when there is a fruit ahead, which is the Rajasa type of Shraddha, then that is the type of person he will become. It is just like, because Shraddha is even more delicate than attention. Yeah, because attention you can keep somewhere and then by your own will you remove it from there and keep it at another place. That's fine. But then Shraddha is even a more what could I say, a more subtle form of attention. How subtle is it? Is that you cannot just put your Shraddha somewhere and then remove it at another time. No, it is a process of keeping your Shraddha in one place. And whenever you want to change it, it is also a process. You cannot just, like attention, remove it from one place and keep it to another. That's why Krishna here says that the type of Shraddha you have determines the type of person you are. It is like it becomes your personality. If we have always been taught that there's only one way of doing work, that is, if you keep a goal ahead, which is the Rajas type of Shraddha, that is the type of person will become. And then to move back from it, it is not just a form of logic. It's not also just a form of like, keep your attention in one place and it will happen. No, it is a process that you have to follow. And that process will take you in circles, whereby, for example, for a person who is so addicted to any one substance he may be addicted to, it is a process that moves in circles, moves in cycles. One day he will say, I will not take that substance. By the end of the day, he will feel like taking the substance again. So there is a time when he is so strong that he won't take it. And then there's a time again that in his mind, it's like, I have to take it. If he is able to stick to one side of it, yeah, if he's able to take it fully and slowly tune the cycles towards not taking the substance. And this is the whole process. And that is even, I would say, like getting a habit is easier than Shraddha, because Shraddha means devotion. You may not get any value from it right now, but then there is great value in itself, in Shraddha itself, in devotion itself. Then Krishna is saying that there are 4 faculties I can show you how Shraddha is. One, you can see it in the food. Aharastvapi sarvasya trividho bhavati priya. One is in the food. Another is in the yajna. Third is in the tapas. And fourth is in the dana, in the charity. We also have to understand that when Krishna talks about these 4 types of how Shraddha can be shown, we're talking about karma, that's fine. But also know that Krishna will slowly take you from karma, as we discussed in chapter 18, from karma towards your antakaran, which is your mind, your intellect, your emotions, and then take you even beyond that. But it has to happen slowly. It can't happen abruptly. If it happens abruptly, it won't be something that is understandable, because it's always the process which is understandable. So 4 perspectives through which Shraddha can be shown. The first, which is food. If you are considering that type of food that will give you health, that will give you the most of strength, and it will also give you arogya, meaning you won't become unhealthy at any one point in time. So there are 2 perspectives. You may be taking healthy food in one perspective, but then you are not trying to counter the diseases that you may find. Yeah? So 2 perspectives, staying healthy and getting rid of the unhealthiness. Both perspectives Krishna has taken. Then also, those that are sthira themselves. So the foods themselves are sthira and hridyaha. They are those that are likable. Those types of foods are sattvika priya. Then there are also those types of foods that take to the tongue a lot, like they're spicy, they are having like tikshna, ruksha, vidahina. Those types of foods that get to your taste buds a lot. Those types of foods are the rajasi types of foods. Then those types of foods of tamasa prakriti that maybe they have stayed for a long time, or those that have they do not have the rasa, gata rasam, do not have the value, the quantity of value that they should have, the minerals or the food value that they should have. They have lost it because they have stayed a long time. Those types of foods. What we should also learn about these three types of foods is that one thing for sure is that when we want to get to what is essential, if we are constantly running for the Rajasi type of foods, because this is the main thing, yeah, we know that we shall never get to the Tamasa types of foods. Like we're also looking for the value in the food. But there is now this distinction between the Sattvic and the Rajasic type of food, whereby we know that the Sattvic type of food is good, but we are always taken towards the Rajasi type of food. We should understand this contrast. Why we're taken to the Rajasi type of food is because we cannot leave that attraction of the taste buds. That's what they give you. Yeah? And when we're doing that, you realize that we're not going for the essence, we're going for something that will just provide you a little value for now. Like it will show you that, oh, I am very tasteful for now, but then it doesn't have any essence in itself. It's only for the taste that you do it. That's when it is Rajasa. When you do it for the value of the food, the healthiness, or getting away from the diseases, and that which actually gives you happiness, that is the sattvic type of food. Then also knowing the quantities of food, because anything, even though it's good, if you take it in large amounts, then it will become a tamasa type of food. You'll feel sleepy, you'll feel lazy after eating so much food, however good it may be. And then there's also another thing, that when you only eat sattvic types of foods, you'll never be able to eat that much. That's also a contrast, because how many fruits can you eat at a time? Or how many vegetables can you eat at a time? You can't eat like you can eat other things that are spicy. You can't eat at that large quantity. So when you're eating sattvic types of foods, it also maintains your quantity with the quality, both perspectives at the same time. You don't have to reduce your food. It reduces itself. It's an automatic process. And this also attains to your antakaran, to your mind. Because when you've eaten at a large quantity, then you'll feel lazy. You can't feel rejuvenated by constantly eating a large quantity, which is tamasa type of, of a person. And since it affects your mind, it's taking you into tamas in your mind, not just your body, but even your mind feels sleepy, it cannot work. Then we are seeing that it doesn't only have an impact on your body, it has an impact on your mind as well, and maybe even beyond. Then there is the yajna, dan, and tapa. To summarize the yajna, dan, and tapa, the main qualities in there for sattvic is that if a yajna, dan, or tapa are sattvic in nature, you will do them for the value of the own activity itself, not for the value of the fruit you're going to get from it. That is one point. Another point is that you will not desire the action itself, because we have talked about the desire for the fruit should not be there, but even the desire for the action itself should not be there. And you can see it, for example, with our normal desires. Like an example of food, you can always desire to have something spicy, but even though you have a habit of eating vegetables and fruits, it never gets to a desire. It doesn't become a desire. It just stays at that level whereby it's enough for you to sustain your body and your mind. So even the same with these types of action. However much you try to desire them, you can't desire the sattvic type of action. That is what makes it sattvic. And you also do it with all the vidhi drishta. Now, as we already know, what vidhi means is taking all the essence of the activity in its own self, stripping off all the tradition that the weeds that tradition may have brought in, stripping off any rituals that may have like been polluted, keeping the value within the activity. Then it is called sattvika. When we are talking about the rajasa type of activity, then the person will always be thinking about the goal that he's going to reach. So this activity for him is not important. What is important is the goal. If he could get to the goal without the activity itself, then he could get to it. Then he will just leave the activity. Then he will also do it with sometimes a great extent, a great desire for the activity sometimes as well. Yeah. So the person may be like, oh, the fruit is okay, but then he will now get attached to the activity itself. So that's also another thing. Rajasa person will also have the other pollutions of the tradition as well, because he will do the action, but then he will do the action with all the pollutions, the weeds. He will not be able to remove the weeds from the activity. And at other times, he will also do it for dambha, just to show the outside world that I can do a certain type of activity. Now, the value of the activity is lost in that, because he's thinking that I should show other people that I'm able to do the activity. He's valuing other people more than the activity itself. So when you're able to give the value to the activity itself, then you're a sattvic type of person rather than a rajasic type of person. When you're a tamasic type of person, first of all, you do not want to do any activity. That's the first thing. Even though you do the activity, you will do the activity with laziness, and you'll try to postpone the activity. Like, I will do part of it and then I'll do part of it tomorrow. That's the laziness that you'll show. You'll prolong the activity more than it has to be prolonged. Then you'll always be wanting to do something else apart from that activity itself. Because a tamasic type of person, he doesn't have control over his own body, his own senses. So his own senses will always be attracted towards sense objects. For example, you'll always want to leave the activity itself and say, I'm tired. And then he will actually go and watch TV, or he'll go and have some type of entertainment. That is how a tamasic type of person will always pursue any activity in his own life. Then Krishna, having talked about the yajna, dan, and tapas, Krishna is then talking about Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Saditi Nirdesho Brahmanastrividha Smritaha Brahmanastena Vedascha Yajnascha Vihita Pura. Everything that the Vedas talk about, everything that the yajnas are about, is about the Om Tat Sat. Krishna is then explaining in the next 5 verses what Om Tat Sat holds in itself. Tasmadomityudharitya yajnadana tapakriyaha pravartante vidhanokta satatam brahmavadinam. A person who is doing any activity and is sattvic in nature, he will have these 3 syllables, Om Tat Sat. What it symbolizes is that they show you the heights of the states that you can reach within your own being. Whenever you've realized what Om means through the Anahat Chakra, or you've even gone beyond the Heart Chakra, then whenever you say Om, it doesn't only remind you of the syllable Om, it reminds you of the state itself. So whenever you're doing any activity, you're doing it from a higher state. That's why you remember it just before any activity. And when you will do that activity after remembering the highest state that you can reach, because it reminds you of that state, then you'll always do it with the essence, removing anything that doesn't keep the essence with itself. So you'll do the activity with all the value it holds. And then what will happen when you do it constantly? An activity that is always started with Om, what will happen is sometimes even when you forget your state, when you do the activity itself will remind you of the state that is beyond yourself. Tadityanus abhisandhaya phalam yajna tapa kriyaha dana kriyascha vividha kriyante moksha kankshibhihi. A person who really wants to get to the center, who really wants to get to the ultimate, he will say Tat. When he's saying Tat, he will say that I do not want any fruit out of this activity. And when you do not want any fruit out of the activity, you realize that you're holding more value for the activity itself. You're giving it the value that it needs. And when you do it with that essence, that you're giving the activity all that it needs, then you do the activity with all the essence itself, without the desire for the fruit, and you're also not attached to the activity itself. That tells you and also shows others what the essence of the activity can be. When we are talking about Sat, we're talking about what the right thing is, what the right state of being is. Sadbhave sadhu bhave cha sadityetat prayujyate prashaste karmani tatha satshabda partha yujyate. When Sat is used, you always remember the truth. And the truth is not only a word for you at this point in time. The truth is something that you have gotten a glimpse of. When you've gotten a glimpse of it in yourself, you're also using the activity to see the glimpse in the world. Because Brahman is not only there at the center, but Brahman is also there at the peripheral. When you're saying Sat, you're saying that I am seeing the truth in this activity itself. And that truth is not only the activity itself, but it is something that unmanifest, that is there in the manifest. So I'm getting to that when I'm saying Sat. And when you're doing this while you're saying Om Tat Sat, this is it gives you all the values within just before you do the activity. Now, when you're doing the activity with all the values, that activity itself, when you're doing it, it takes you to a higher level itself. It doesn't keep you there. So this is like a cycle. You're approaching the activity from a higher level, then the activity itself takes you to a higher level. Then again, you do another activity through that higher level that you've attained, constantly moving upwards, constantly moving to that higher level. When you're doing this is when it is said that you have the utmost Shraddha, you have the utmost devotion towards whatever you're doing now. It doesn't matter the activity you're doing now, because your devotion is right, the activity you're doing will be right. So Krishna here, how he has pointed out the differences between how you can do an activity within these three modes, Sattvic, Rajas, and Tamas, is showing that you may be doing a good activity at face value, but if you're doing it with the wrong intentions, not at the right state, not with just giving the value to the activity itself rather than the fruit, then you're doing it wrongly, totally. However good the activity itself may be.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. These verses, verses 23 to 28 of chapter 17 are some of my favorites in Gita. Because this is Japayadya. This is showing you how to bring to your mind all of Gita while saying just Om Tat Sat. And this is a profound way of holding and reminding you and living the Gita in the present. And it is an entire technique. It is an entire technology of grasping that. So thank you very much. Let's go to chapter 18.
Athashtadashodhyayah. Now Arjuna is asking that there are two things that are in my mind. And I want to ask that, what is sannyasa and what is tyaga? Can you tell me what it means, what sannyasa is? And can you tell me what it means, what tyaga is? And you're the only one who can tell me what it truly means. Because I know you've taken me through this whole journey. And since you have been able to give me the answers to all these questions, I can see that you are also able to tell me what it means by sannyasa. There are so many levels of looking at this. One level, Krishna is saying that kamyanam karmanam nyasam sannyasam kavayo vidu. When you're living the types of karma that you are always wanting to do, where you have a desire. So you're not living the desire, but what you're doing is you're living the types of actions which entail a desire. Some people say, some great people, not only just some people, but those who have known will take you through that path. Then others will also show you the road, that keep doing any activity that you're doing, but sarva karma phala tyagam. Do this, that do the activity, but remove the karma phala from it. Remove the desire for the fruit from it. Then do any type of karma and it will be right. Then others will also say that you should leave those types of karma that have the doshavad, Tyajyam dosha vadityeke karma prahur manishina. Others will say that you should remove all the types of actions that have the doshas within them, that actually allow you to become addicted to the action itself or allow you to get always desire the fruit. Remove those actions from there. And others will tell you that these three things, yajna, dhan, and tapa, these three types of karma should never be left. They should always be done. Then Krishna is now putting his view forward, that I have told you whatever is in the world and whatever great people have said. Now I am telling you what I feel is right and what I feel you should be able to do. Nischayam shrinu me tatra tyage bharata sattama tyago hi purusha vyagra trividha samprakirtitah. Then Krishna here is now putting his viewpoint forward, that look at this. I am telling you again that this that you're asking about is of three types: sattvic, rajas, and tamasic. It's not only of one type that you'll want to think about. What you should be able to do is yajna, dana, tapa, karma, na tyajyam karyameva tat. Why? Yajna, danam, tapaschaiva, pavanani manishinam. Krishna is saying that I hold this view more above the others. And it's not because Krishna doesn't know about the other views. Krishna is the right person who can tell you that there are so many views in the world. They all have their ups and downs. However, at this point in time, to the person he is revealing this, the situation it is being revealed in, this is the best. That this is what Arjuna should do. You can do this. You should do this. You should never leave yajna, dhan, and tapas. You should always be doing them. And you should do them without wanting the karma itself, the action itself, or without desiring the fruit of the action. You should always do it with utmost love, with utmost compassion for the action itself. And that is when it will be rightful that you're giving the value to the action itself rather than the fruit. Because the fruit can be gotten through so many processes. But the process itself is really important. The karma itself is really important. Now, Krishna is also talking about the different types of jnanam, the different types of karma, the different types of what it means that there are three things that we should always be able to know. Jnanam, jnayam, parigyata. Yeah? And then there is also that aspect of karta, karma. Yeah? The person who is doing the action that is being done, the action itself, and then the karana, that through which the action is being done, which would be the body, the senses, the mind. That distinction, those two loops should be constantly known, because if that loop is constantly on, then these three exist. When the loop goes so subtle, you realize that it all goes into one. It goes all into existence. That which is the ultimate, that which is the unmanifest, that is where it all goes. But before that, we should understand what it means that these three mean. These three are constant loops that we have with the world. There is this loop that we would normally put to the body. the body is there that we are using to do any action. That is the karana. And any action we are doing is affecting the world. That is the action itself. Then there is the doer, the person who does the action. Then the other loop is in the mind, which is subtler than that loop that is in the body. There is the thought that is there, the thought that is going on. And how do you get the thought? Is using the mind is how you get to the thought. There's a person who is actually there, untouched by the thought, and he is the one who is the Jnata. He knows what is happening. So these two loops constantly. And these two loops affect each other. The way you think affects the way you act out. The way you act out also affects the way you think. None of them are on their own right. Both of them have this intersection that they can't live without them, each other. Then beyond that, Krishna is saying that there is he who knows these two processes happening. When you know he who knows the two processes happening, then you get to the sakshi, you get to the real seer, the drashta. And in Sankhya itself, because these chapters have been of Sankhya, in Sankhya Shastra itself, we know that even more than a person who thinks, the person who is a drashta, who can see, is valued more. If you can see what is happening, if you can see what is right, what is wrong, if you can see, then you can really pay attention to the details. However, when you're always thinking, contemplating, you may get caught up by the thoughts. You may get caught up by the concepts themselves rather than the truth. So when you're seeing, when you're the seer, and you can see these two processes happening, and you're still untouched by these two processes, then Krishna is saying you've gotten to the most subtle part of your own self. Then Krishna is saying that there are also different types of people and different ways they will get to the karma, how they'll approach karma, how they'll approach dharma, and how they'll approach bhava. So three distinct places. There is a place of karma, which will say swakarma, what is your own action. Then swadharma, what is your own dharma. What is then what your own bhava is, what is your swabhava. So these three distinct perspectives as well. Krishna at length then also talks about karma on its own right. First, if you take your own karma, first of all, if you realize what your own karma is, like what your talent is, then automatically you will not do it for any money, you'll not do it for any fame. So you're not doing it for any fruit ahead. You will do it for the value of your own talent. So first, identifying your own karma is really important, because the others are even subtle than this. They're more subtle than this. Getting to your swakarma is a bit easier. So Krishna talks about that first. Get to your swakarma. When you get to your own karma, you will get to the siddhi that it takes you towards. And your own karma is way better than anybody's karma. Your own talent shows you where you can flower rather than anybody else can flower. For example, if we take a lotus flower, it is really able to flower in the mud. But if a lotus flower thinks that I should be able to flower in a place where the rose flower flowers, for example, in a great garden, that's where I should be. That's my rightful place. Now, he may be thinking that that place is really good, better than the mud that I am growing in. But you realize that when a lotus is grown in the greatest of gardens, like a rose, what happens is it doesn't become a rose. That's a given. And it also loses the potential of itself becoming a lotus. So when you're going towards other people, what their karma is, what their actions are, first of all, you're leaving your action, and you'll also not be able to get to the subtleness of other people's action. You'll not be able to flower in any way, neither in your own way, nor in another person's way. So your swakarma is really important. Then Krishna says that Shreyan swadharmo viguna paradharmat swanushthitat swabhava niyatam karma kurvan napnoti kilbisha. There is the swadharma that you should be aware of. Now, swadharma is subtler than swakarma, because swakarma is something that you will do on the outside. Swadharma is a set of values that you'll have within yourself. And that set of values is also really important. It is not a set of thoughts only. Rather, those thoughts that will evolve in your mind will be from this set of values. That's why this set of values are really important. So this set of values that are for your own, that they will evolve from the karma that you are doing, because we shall be working the other way around. Normally, we would say that karma evolves from your swadharma and your swadharma evolves from your swabhava. But when we are looking at it from the perspective of practice, we'll first know what our swakarma is. Then we'll be able to know what our swadharma is. So we're going in the opposite direction, practically. Then we'll be able to know what our swabhava is. When we're able to get to our own values, where our karma evolves from. When you've gotten to your siddhi that you get from your swakarma, you'll get to your swadharma. Then even from your sadharma, Krishna is saying, you will get to buddhya vishuddhaya yukta. You'll get to the purest of intellect, where anything you think about will obviously be right. Now, this is something that you have to get to. You train your body to act like, you train your mind to think like. Whenever it thinks, whenever it acts, it always thinks and acts in the right way, never in the wrong way. It's never pulled by the wrong. It's always taken towards the right. Then Krishna is saying that that person who has taken towards all this, your own swakarma, your own swadharma, then vimuchya nirmama shanto brahma bhuyaya kalpate. He gets to the brahma bhava. Brahma bhuta prasannatma nashochati nakangshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. A person who has gotten to his own swabhava now, because he has come to brahma bhuta, he has come to his swabhava now. Having gotten to his swabhava, he is prasannatma, and he is sama sarveshu bhuteshu. He doesn't have a high and a low for anybody else, because he also sees the same swabhava in himself that is in others. So there is no high and there is no low. He constantly does bhakti, constantly loving the center, constantly loving the unmanifest. He gets to the param gati. Mad bhaktim labhate param. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatvatah tato mam tatvato jnatva vishate tadanantaram. He gets to my bhakti doing my bhakti continuously. Now that will entail doing the right action, having the right thoughts. But now that's a given for you now. You don't have to think about it. What your attention is towards is now loving the center only. When you're loving the center, you get to know what the center is. And getting to know what the center is, Krishna is saying, there's only one way to get to know the center, is to become one with the center. When there is no difference between you and the center, is when you get to know what the center is. When you're always in that state, is when you get tato maham tattvato gyatva. You get to know what the unmanifest is, what the ultimate is, what the center is. Krishna then is taking another perspective, that now I'm going to tell you what the Guhyataram is, what something secretive is, that you should always be doing your karma with your swabhava. So Krishna has taken you from your karma towards your swabhava, even to the unmanifest. Now he's coming back up, that your swakarma should be done in such a way, when will it be fruitful? When it's done in such a way that it's always directed towards the center. So when you've known the whole link and you've gone through it, you've gotten a glimpse of the ultimate, then whatever you'll do at the peripheral now will be attuned to the center in any way, in every way, and in all ways. ईश्वर सर्वभूतानां हृद्देशेऽर्जुन तिष्ठति भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि यन्त्रारूढानि मायया. You'll realize that what the manifest is coming from the unmanifest and is played out by the unmanifest. It is not something new or something distinct. You should always go back to the unmanifest. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata. When you're always going back to the center and then coming out and doing the karma at the peripheral, you will always do the right karma. And you'll also receive the grace of the ultimate, because you're always going back to the ultimate, to the center. That is the Guhyataram. However, Krishna is saying, let me tell you the Guhyatamam of what is. You can realize that there is the unmanifest, and there is the center, the unmanifest, and there is the peripheral, the manifest. However, know this. Can you see this in front of you? I am the unmanifest, manifested at the same time. Sarva guhyatamam bhuya shrume paramam vachaha ishtosi me dridhamiti tato vakshyami te hitam. What you have to do is manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijhane priyosi me. Always contemplate upon me. Always do action that is thinking about me, seated in me, contemplating about me. What you should do at that point in time, Krishna is saying, Sarva dharman parityajya mahamekam sharanam braja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. What happens at that time when you realize that you've gotten to the ultimate, even in the most manifest form, then even leave your swadharma, leave all the dharma. Yeah? Sarva dharman parityajya. Because when you've gotten to your swabhava, it doesn't matter your dharma, it doesn't matter your karma. All will just evolve automatically. But it should evolve from your swabhava, which is the ultimate, which is in front of Arjuna. Krishna is saying that look at me and leave all that you have been thinking about. You will get to the ultimate. by doing this. Because if you can see the unmanifest in the most manifest form and you can realize it, then you have gotten to the greatest of heights, to the greatest of steps. Krishna is then at the end telling Arjuna that you should not tell this Gita to anybody who does not want to listen to it, or does not want to act upon it, or even doesn't have devotion towards the Gita itself. You should also not tell this to a person who doesn't like me or is always saying wrong things about me. Person like Shishupala, person like Duryodhana. If you're always telling a person who doesn't want to listen, then he will divert. First of all, he doesn't want to listen. So he won't be able to get to the gist of what it truly is. Then another thing also, since I've told you the people you should not tell to, however, you should tell it out to the people who are with great devotion, who will actually walk the path. And you should do that because it has the greatest of value. If you tell other people, you will also be able to walk the path in process. So it is a process continuously, a loop. You walk the path, and then you tell others to walk the path. And then they will also encourage you to walk the path further. Constant loop. And then you can also allow them to get to higher steps that you have reached as well, that you have experienced as well. Krishna at last is asking that, have you listened to me with the greatest attention? And has any of your ignorance or has any of your delusions gotten dissolved by this, what I have told you, the Gita that I have sung to you? Arjuna then is saying that all my delusions have gone away. I have gotten back what I truly was. And that has happened not only by my own being, but by your grace. And I accept it, that I have gotten it by your grace. All the doubts have been destroyed. There's no doubt in me now. This is what Krishna wanted to take Arjuna towards. And you can see here what Krishna does is hold Arjun's hand and take him towards the end continuously. Whenever Arjuna diverts, again Krishna holds his hand and takes him to what the right path is. Then Sanjay concludes the Gita that I have listened to what Krishna has told Arjuna and what questions Arjuna has asked. This itself, the conversation itself, the dialogue itself, was wonderful. I can't even talk about it. It was interesting even to listen to. However, even more interesting is when I'm again contemplating upon it, when I'm again remembering it, it is constantly taking me to higher states of being. What can I say about it? Rajan sansmritya samvadamimam adbhutam keshavarjuna yo punyam rishyami cha muhurmuhu. Constantly, I am getting to higher states. Not only that, even tacha sansmritya rupamatyudbhutam harehe vismayo me mahan rajan rishyami cha punah punah. I am also remembering what Krishna is like and the bliss I am getting into, the happiness I am actually experiencing. I cannot tell you. So I'm saying Vismaya. I can't say any word after that. You know, when you say some words like wonderful, and it was something I cannot expect, and it was elegant, it was marvelous. What you're saying there, in short, is that I do not have any words to talk about it. I cannot put it into words. That is the experience I've had. That is what you're, in short, saying. Then, this is the last verse of the whole of Gita. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Dhruvani Tir Matir Mama. Wherever there is Yogeshwara Krishna, wherever there is Krishna, who is the greatest of all those who know all the yogas, and wherever there is Partha, wherever there is Arjuna, in that place there will be victory. There will also be the greatest of all Aishwarya. You will see the Kirti there. You will see wonder there always. And this I am telling you, O Dhritarashtra. And this Sanjay is telling Dhritarashtra in a moment when Dhritarashtra is saying that I expect my sons to win, because this is when the war is in the middle portion. And Dhritarashtra expects Sanjay to tell him that your sons will win. However, before the war has even ended, Sanjay is saying that I see this, that wherever there's Krishna and wherever there's Arjuna, that side will win. Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supnishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambhade Moksha Sannyasa Yogo Nama Ashtadashodhyayah. Hari Om.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. Thank you. We are in Sanjay's position, listening to this dialogue and being just completely stunned by its profundity, its beauty, and I think we will be in that position probably throughout our lives. As we come back to it, keep coming back to it, we will keep seeing more and more and more. So thank you for taking us through this journey. I want to give you, my feedback on what I got from your presentations, but I want to first we've got about 30 minutes, so something like that, about 25 minutes. So I invite everybody now to talk about what they got from Yogeshwar's presentation. I want to give feedback to Yogeshwar about what everybody got from that. So I invite everybody to give feedback. If you do not want to speak, you can go ahead and type it in chat, whatever you prefer. We're going to start with Joe, followed by Evanik. Joe.
Yeah, I mean, Yogeshwar, I personally can't thank you enough for everything that you've done for us. I mean, I kept on thinking this whole time, this evening, that just how fortunate we are to have had you here, and just the depth of your knowledge, and having attempted to really interpret these works on my own in the past. Hearing and listening to you has been incredible, in the sense that I'll just give you one perfect example. Is like last night when we were talking about the knower, the object of knowledge, and the field, and how you were able to say, if I were to say this in the West, you were able to essentially translate it just right then on the fly. But the key is that you're communicating these incredibly deep concepts in such a digestible way that it's been life-changing. So that's the only, and so it's very hard to say thank you to that. I'm glad they were captured on recording. It's something that I hope a lot of people come back to. I know I will. And I can honestly say that in going through these ancient texts, a lot of the Tao and everything, it's been an honor to be here. So that's the and the ability to communicate such deep concepts. I wish I could repay you. I wish I could. But
Thank you, my friend. Next up is Evanik.
Yogeshwar, thank you. These meetups have been life-changing. This is the first time I've studied anything like this. And you have made it practical to, everyone's life. And I feel like the way you teach it brings it to life, and it makes it applicable to all aspects of life. And when I've been sitting here in the meetups, I'm always thinking like, okay, what area of my life does this apply to? And usually it just hits me like, oh yeah. And then for me to be able to observe without judgment is because of you and this meetup. To observe myself, to kind of break away from the attachments and to break away from the emotion of something, and really being able to look at it and see how I can take action. Like that practical nature of it has been really helpful. I remember, I don't think it was last night, might have been Thursday night. No, I think it was last night when we were talking about the truth and looking through the glass and knowing that you're seeing yourself like a reflection of yourself through the glass. And so to say that something is 100% true, no, it's not. It's through your lens. And knowing that has helped me tremendously when I'm talking to people and seeing their perspective on it, or at least trying to, so that when I'm trying to communicate something, kind of like thinking of how it's going to land over there with them, and and is what I'm truly saying getting across. And so that's helped communication. So I think, especially being a beginner in Gita, it has really helped me apply it to so many different areas of my life, and to see it in other scriptures. Like we were talking last night about seeing it in the Gospel of John, and seeing it in the New Testament, and seeing, these teachings of Gita in the Old Testament, and really being able to bring these works and spread them out throughout different spiritual practices. And like you being the example of how to live it, I think it's just been great in the way you study it. And you can tell your love for the Gita by the way you study it and the way you seek it out. And just thank you so much for being willing to, and to help us, guide us on this journey of the Gita, and really teaching us what you know and being generous with what you know. So thank you. And I would agree with you, there's no way that we could repay you, but if I could, I would.
Thank you. Thank you, Evanik. Really appreciate that. Next up, folks, please go ahead and type exclamation mark if you would like to talk about what you got from Yogeshwar's presentations. Next up is going to be Elena. Elena, go ahead.
Also joining everyone. Thank you. Really, just the gratitude to you, Yogeshwar and Shrikant, for making this available to, because of you have the most unique perspective out of everyone I know. You live it, you cite it from memory. You really do have deepest knowledge on the topic. And So that, thank you so much. And then I'd like to see a bit more or ask a question.
No, questions later on.
Question. Okay.
Thank
Then
you.
I'll keep it is a question for whenever the questions time.
Absolutely. So we will do these comments first, and then we will take after these comments for Yogeshwar's presentations, we will talk about your entire take on Gita, everybody's entire take on Gita and what it has done for you. And then we will go on to specific questions. Next up is going to be Jyoti, followed by Brian. Jyoti, go ahead.
Yeah, Yogeshwar, I am so fortunate to have attended all these teachings from you, from Gita. I knew about Gita, but you have explained Gita to all as it is, Gita as it is, at a very deeper level. I am carrying with me lifetime of knowledge and wisdom, and now I'm just hoping that I will be able to apply it. I'm trying my best. I catch myself many times when I'm thinking otherwise, not thinking right. And then your preachings come in my mind, and I said, no, that's not how it is. So I'm going to be catching myself all the time, and I'm very grateful to you. And like Avanik said, if I could pay you, Joe said, if I could pay you, I would. But I know there is nothing on this earth that I could gather and give it to you. You are above everything. I really appreciate that you have taken the time and devoted all this time to equip with us all the knowledge that we could never even fathom to have it. So I can only say thank you so much.
Thank you, Jyoti. Next up is Brian. Brian, go ahead.
Yogeshwar, I thank you very much for what I've gained, but I have to admit that I haven't gained as much as I need to. I have personally studied the Bhagavad Gita for over 25 years, and I've taken several courses, video courses like this from different organizations. And it wasn't until I started listening to you that I realized that I haven't actually learned all that much during all that time and all that effort. I mean, one major thing I got out of it is the other book, the Janeshwari, which I actually haven't heard of before. Nobody ever told me about that before. And I'm still studying and not even halfway through, but I'm getting a lot from that. But with regard to your presentations, I'm afraid I have not heard of them all. I have a difficulty sort of staying awake after 10 o'clock, actually. And so a lot of the stuff I've missed. But I do have a plan. And the plan is to follow on through the recordings from the beginning and start again. Because they really do convey so much. It's impossible to put into words. And I think that's enough. I just thank you very much for what I've got so far and what I will get in the future. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'm going to make my comments, and then we will go to what everybody got from Bhagavad Gita. So that's going to be the next, and then we will do questions. So firstly, the scholarship that Yogeshwar has is incredible. Not only he can read, he has read and has kind of internalized Bhagavad Gita, but he has read all the major Sanskrit commentaries. Not only has he read all the major Sanskrit commentaries, he has gone and stayed with people who specialize in them for months at a time in order to learn the entire traditions of Shankaracharya, of Ramanujacharya. And not only taken that, but has put it in his own words and communed with each of these traditions and tried to see the connections between that. So that scholarship is at a completely different level. Second, he's able to present all of these various takes on Gita and integrate them, of saying what is the connection between them, what is the advantage of this, what is the advantage of that, in what context did this commentary arise, in what context did this commentary arise, and bring it together. So that is the level of scholarship he brings. Second is he is able to create metaphors of his own and select metaphors to make things easily accessible to people. So he has all this base of knowledge, but he's able to put it in a way which can easily, with other person can easily see these complex points. Third is that because he grew up in Africa, he has an external perspective on Indian thought, which is very unusual for somebody who has that level of knowledge of Indian thought. Most people who have that are in India, and they are really profound thinkers. But because they do not have an external perspective, it is harder for them to communicate the core of Indian thought to somebody outside of India. And I think that Yogeshwar has that ability of communicating to the West. I'm also impressed that he attended many of the meetups of Dao De Jing and Bhagavad Gita and immersed himself in it, and saw the commonalities between that, and in his presentations weaved that, talking about 10,000 things for a while, and the Holy Spirit and living water and the center and periphery. He was able to weave that in, which made it possible, made it easy to present, to see. Next is that he's a seeker. He's a person who is trying to learn. He has a humility, which is actually part of the Indian tradition. The knowledge of Brahma is incredibly deep, and there is always more. So it doesn't really matter what you know. It is you pushing relentlessly every moment towards greater knowledge. And that is the mindset that he himself has. And as a consequence, he's able to present these ideas in a very matter of fact, very humble, very direct way. In these last senses, he's kind of the best of the Indian tradition. This is the Indian tradition of saying that, you have to know, you have to learn, and seeking is everything, and you continuously seek. What you have achieved is okay, but that's not the point. The point is continuous seeking. Last point I would make is that many people get lost into rituals, and he's been able, he relentlessly focuses on the spirit of Gita and makes it come alive. So I've just, it's been just a tremendous honor and just sheer delight having him here, and I'm definitely going to miss him, and he's welcome back anytime it makes sense for him to participate. What his quest is, a very deep quest, and I have profound respect for what he's doing. And whenever it is appropriate, whenever it is good, really would appreciate any time he wants to come on again. And he's become a very good friend, and I'm going to miss him for sure. So next, let us comment on what we got from Gita. From this entire, I think Yogeshwari is going to be here for only about 7 minutes. And so if you want to talk about what you got from Gita, please go ahead and do that. Yogeshwar, do you have any comments on what you got from doing all these presentations? You're welcome to.
So what I have gotten from these presentations is, one is the perspective of the Western mind. Because normally I have read books about philosophy, but then it's not that interaction you get with the books. When you have the interaction, when you have questions and you have some answers and you have a feedback, then it is more of an interactive process. You can get more from that. You can know the Western mind more from that. And then also, in a way, showing somebody what the Gita is trying to say. Sometimes it may relate to the Western mind, sometimes it's beyond that. In all ways, I have learned where each perspective is, which cannot really be put into, like, you can't really write a book out of it, but then it's some understanding that you get within yourself. And then also another perspective was that I really am grateful to Shrikant because he allowed me to speak in these conversations, and because first of all, I was just here to be passive. Like maybe if I have questions, I'll ask, but then I'll listen more, because what I wanted at that time was to know the Western mind, like what they think about the Gita. That's why I had actually joined. Then I realized that as I was doing and as I was communicating about the Gita, I actually got to know more about the Western mind than I could have gotten just by listening to it. That was what got to me. And then also another thing is that giving me a platform to relay Indian ideas, like Indian tradition, how it's supposed to be viewed in today's world, was also something like I am grateful about, because you can have your thoughts about it, because many of them are thoughts that I have gotten from Indian traditions themselves. And they are things that have been written 200 years back or 1,000 years back. And to get the essence out of it, then sometimes it relates to your own life, like you feel it's useful to me. And then when it becomes useful to other people, then you realize that it is actually useful. It's not only useful to me, but it's actually useful to so many other people as well, not only myself. So that same process has now even become more prominent. Like now I can see that in all perspectives. I now also have more ground into making it more accessible for people, even in the modern world. And then also, like, even the Western mind is one, like people who are based in the US, it is one thing. But even people who are in India right now, like if we take the big cities like Mumbai or Delhi or Pune, Chennai, those people have also gotten up the Western concepts in a way. So even telling them about these concepts, like talking to them about these concepts, is something now I can learn about. Like this is something that can be done. It's not something that there is no bridge between, but there is a bridge and it can be like gotten over to. That is really important. And always, what has been in Indian tradition, Krishna had said the Gita, then Shankaracharya gave it a form. He gave it a form from the unmanifest, from the function. He gave it a form. Ramanujacharya gave it another form. It may feel different, but then it's from the function. So it has the value within itself. Now you feel that all the acharyas have given it a form in their own time. Maybe the Gita needs its own rightful form. Because sometimes when the forms are picked, the previous forms are picked, the function is lost. So maybe another form needs to be put in place, that the function is manifest in its own self now. And the unmanifest now becomes manifest at this point in time. That is more important, even in Indian tradition.
Wonderful. Thank you, Yogeshwar. And what I want to say is that this quest of making Gita and Indian thought accessible to the world, and by the way, accessible to Indians who are becoming part of the world, becoming part of the global economy, the Western thinking, is going to last our lifetime. So it is something that is going to be a big issue. It is not only a big issue now, but it's going to become even more important 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And I think, what we have done here, thanks to you, as well as, I want to thank everybody who is here and the extent to which they have engaged with Gita, asked questions, made comments. This is how new forms get developed, because the new form is simply taking the function and trying to make it accessible in the current situation. So hopefully something will grow from your work, from works of other people who will listen to this and maybe figure out their own way of putting things together. So absolutely, it's been honor and delight, my friend. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, I know you need to leave, but again, thank you very much to you. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask people about what they got from the Gita meetups. We've just finished the Gita meetups, but it's not the end. We are going to now move to a monthly format where we will continue the discussion on Gita. So now I want to open it up for anybody who wants to share what they got from Gita meetups. Evanik.
I've gotten the desire to go to the center and learn more about myself. And yeah, that's the biggest thing that I've gotten, is to, learn more about myself and to develop a spiritual practice, not for the sake of just doing it, but for the sake of getting to the center and trying out new practices to see what gets me there. And the Gita gave me, in a sense, quote unquote, permission or ease to do that and to try different things, to get to the center, to get to the core of who I am, and, to get to know God more. And it doesn't have to be one thing. It can be multiple things, and that's okay. And this is a journey. And, in a journey, some things work out and some things don't. So remembering that, and, the biggest thing I got is seeking God, being the person that God wants to reveal themselves to. And I think another thing is attachment, and letting go of certain things that no longer work, certain tools that worked at one point in time but no longer work. Looking at things and saying, does this bring me closer to God or closer to the center, or does it take me away? And observing it and letting it go in real time. And so yeah, those are the biggest things I got from the Gita.
Right. So sorry, David, I didn't realize that the question was about the overall thing. So I tried to postpone all the questions because I wanted to give him feedback because I think it's very important to give feedback. So I wanted to give, chance for for him to hear what people got. All right. So next up is Joe. Joe, go ahead.
It has, there have been a number of things, and I actually mentioned this initially in the Designing Your Life meetup, where, I've been practicing, working on my Stoicism, practicing Stoicism for a very long time. But what the Gita has given me is this deeper understanding of the self, and how there is, there's a process for that when you look internally, and it's seeing the God in yourself so that you can see the God in everyone else. And that is transformative, because I can always, and then I explained this in the past, that I can always say something that, well, that's something someone else is doing. That's them, that's not me. And that's a rational way of looking at it. It's a very rational way, but it's transformative when you start to understand yourself and understand your own personal desires, and then look at the person as completely, in a very loving way, so that whatever they're doing, you start to look at them differently, so that that's where the God in me recognizes the God in you. That is it sounds like it's the most transformative thing, that if you can take away one thing from the Gita, that would be it for me. I mean, but there is so much deeper than that. When you get into the gunas, this is the process of understanding yourself. This is how it breaks down. And even in discussing what Yogeshwar was talking about when a little bit earlier today, with anger, and Seneca has written on anger and helps you understand the root causes of anger too. But the nature of, you didn't get what you wanted, and what was the other thing, is that well, you don't like what you've got.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you don't like it, but just starting to really dissect what anger is, but doing that for all the emotions, the ability to really question, it's wisdom. I mean, I really think that. And then what is really important in an individual? What is praiseworthy in an individual? These are the same kinds of questions that Socrates tried to get to as well. But the Gita really does it in a very, I would say, in a spiritually transformative way.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very deep concepts in there all throughout, the importance of devotion, the importance of meditation, like in concentration and focus, in a way that's, again, we say these words, but this is where it really has been something that has been transformative. It's brought these concepts, and it shows you, and Yogeshwar's ability to actually, again, to use metaphors and understand these concepts and convey them to us, so that we could take these lines and understand. I mean, I could go on and on about this, understanding the yogas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the different paths, the yogas of devotion, whether it be karma yoga, or and how that's the easiest way to get to the center. Understanding what the center is, so that you can act out. That it really is virtues, is at the center, and what it means to be distracted by the periphery. That these, again, that understanding, like our thoughts, the tasks we do, the feelings we have, how that is the periphery. But what the core of you is, and acting from the core is aligning your actions and who you are. And that is a very, very, very deep concept. And that's a lifelong journey that it prevents you, and we've done Outwitting the Devil, and it prevents you from drifting. Like this is essentially what it does. It helps you act in the world. And this will be one, I don't want to take up too much time, but one of the other important things is, doing things for the right reasons, and essentially the essence of you're doing it for the because you actually love what you do. You're embracing it. And that's in chapter 17. We covered that tonight. But I think of something like what Yogeshwar is doing, and yourself. You're bringing us the Gita, right? You're bringing us knowledge because you love it. And you're able to, and that's what it really means to do something for the essence of it, right? That's what I find so refreshing, because when you're doing something because it's just the right thing to do and it's who you are, then you've reached you're acting from your center.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I could go into
that's fine. That's fine. Well, let's have other people chime in, and then we'll open it up for anything that anybody wants to bring up. So let's go with Jyoti, followed by Andrea. Jyoti.
Gita has been very informative, knowledge giving, and very everything that Joe has said. But I did a small presentation myself last week on how to design your life, and I spoke about Gita a little bit, and I will say the same thing, that I learned so much about the depth of human mind. Just last night, he made a comment. He said, discipline and attention is happiness. I would have never thought in those terms. And I thought about it in the morning when I woke up, and I said, he is so right. When you are focused in your present and you are not getting distracted, what could be more virtuous than that? I mean, you are with time. And that is what happiness is. So what Gita has done for me is, it has pulled me out a little bit from darkness. Due to my circumstances, my life, and what have you, it was always there at the back of my mind, lingering, and it helped me to understand the human nature. I stopped beating myself up on that, and I said, well, that's okay. That's why Gita is there, to help you to move on with that. So that has, Gita has really, the way Yogeshwar talked about it, I think, and Gita as it is, with the examples, with the metaphors, and it just is very transformative. And at my, even I think I'm the oldest in the group here, but if I could benefit from it, and I think everybody would benefit, younger people will definitely benefit from it and move in a direction where you need to move into. So, and like I said before, gunas, oh my goodness, I think that was $1 million thing that he talked about. Every so often I think, sit down and think about it. Where am I? Where am I going? And that itself is such a valuable thing to have in yourself, that that gives you sense of satisfaction, contentment, and you feel like you are now a person who's equipped to deal with your life, to move on. and do the right thing. And what Gita is not only moralistic, it is also the way the things should be, the way the human being should move. That's the way it should be. It's like a prescription for the life, for your life. So I have gathered a lot of information, and his example of looking at from the window at the sky, it gives you such a small perspective of what is there. You should not look at it from that angle, from small angle. You should look at the big picture. And he is so very right. So many times we make decisions looking at the small pictures, and we say, oh, I didn't take that into consideration. It's because we become so impulsive and so carried away that we forget there are other sides of it. There is a bigger side. And his whole perspective about river, waves and river, and how to go in the boat, and you have to get off on the other end. You can be left in between. Yeah, that's moksha. So I think every little thing that he says, it's something for everybody to take back and think about it and reflect on it. That's the way the life should be. So if I could get that, I think, that is profound. That's really big. Thank you. You are muted.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you, Jyoti. And, fortunately, we have YouTube and we have all of those. So I encourage everybody to rewatch, because my friend Rupali was saying, she had attended a meetup, and just like 4 or 5 days later, she watched the same video. And she said, wow, I got all of these new things from the same thing that I had attended. So I think the fact that we have all of this great work on YouTube is a great asset, and that's going to help us, all of us, going forward. And hopefully many more people will discover it as we go on. Next up is going to be Andrea.
Thank you. I'd like to say a couple of things here. My first contact with Gita was when I was taking some yoga course, but more in the sense of very superficial. And actually, I couldn't really make any connections, because when you're taking these yoga certificate courses to teach yoga here in the Western world, is very much the physical, all right, the fitness. So the Gita was just part of the curriculum, but I couldn't really get into the depth of it. And then through other experience as well. So when I was checking the meetup, I got it when it was already in chapter 17 or 16. So it was just because I was going through some battles in my life, and I said, okay, I will try. So for me, Gita now is becoming more like a philosophy for life, not a religious sense. So although might be for some people have a religious tone, for me it can be more spiritual or more philosophical. And also another way of helping the self, and this goes more with Joseph was talking about the psychology. So instead of having reach out to a therapist, I reach out to Gita. You know what I mean? So I see more like as a psychology, and in a way it goes very much into, well, I start questioning now the psychology that we have been practicing, in therapies, for example. It's all about the self. So all these are trying to understand the self, and how can we understand the self from a Gita's guidelines, I would say. So it's I think that is something that is a process, and that's a journey, all right? Because we come to Gita in different times of our lives and we get it out of it different things. So right now I'm in a different journey, and I try to get whatever I can for me to go through this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Really great comments. Thank you. All right. So now I'm going to open it up for any. Okay. Marco, what did you get?
Yeah, I always like the Gita was like an instruction manual for life, and also like yeah, a lot of the things is like just like making better decisions, and and also that I'm like seeing the ultimate in myself and others, and yeah, that's all I can think of at the moment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marco. Now I want to open it up for any comments or any questions, any discussion that you would like to do on any aspect of Gita, on relationship between Gita and Tao Te Ching and Gospel of John, on spirituality, Gita in modern times, Gita in the West, anything or any particular question that you would like to raise. We'll start with Elena. Elena, go ahead.
All right. My question is about what we went over today. Shraddha as the process, as the set of actions that are the most beneficial, that are the, how to say it, it's the flow, and it's done out of your highest use and whatever fulfillment, whatever purpose, if there is a purpose and such. So if we're doing this action, we're involved in this action. So there is, we're not supposed to be having a goal or thinking about a fruit of action. So that's not the purpose. However, how to not be complacent and not be running in circles without having the intent. And or better, let me phrase the question as, what's the biggest difference between intent and goal? Because intent is everything and the goal is the fruit of action. So how do we walk the fine line? It's and then another question, what's the difference between Western mind and Eastern mind?
Okay, the first question, I have no idea. I mean, the thing is, it's very confusing for me, so I'll drop that. I don't have any way of answering it. The question on the Eastern mind and Western mind, I would say that it's better to think of it as the Western mind, the Chinese mind, and the Indian mind, because Chinese mind and Indian mind are very different from each other. So in terms of, and that I will put a question for everybody who may want to answer it. What differences do you see? Because we have studied, lots of us have been studying, Gospel of John. May forget the modern times, because each of these minds has a history of its own. So as Yogeshwar is pointing out, the Indian mind today is very different from Indian mind at the time of Gita, or at the time of Shankaracharya, or at the time of Ramanujacharya. So let's look at these three works, Tao Te Ching, Gospel of John, and Bhagavad Gita, and what differences do you see between them? We talked about commonalities yesterday. Maybe we can talk about differences. So that is one question. Anybody else wants to chime in? So I'll put that as a question. if anybody wants to answer it. But if anybody else wants to put anything to be discussed on the table, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, we'll discuss this point about what differences do you see between them. If you want, you can talk about commonalities and then talk about differences. Joe, go ahead.
So I'm going to give differences a shot first, because I was thinking about this today. And feel free to critique my thinking, please. Is that we talked a little bit last night about the external God and the internal God, the looking internally and externally. And I kept on thinking to myself, one of the things that about the Bible or Gospel of John is that it's still the God of the Old Testament in a way. There is still that element of an external force that we're, external God that's actually kind of a punitive God in a way. And I guess there's some commonality there. But I look at the Gita and I think of one of the differences is it's much deeper when it looks at the self. And it gives you a process to look at the self, not just follow me. There's some of that, there's that difference, right? And I think that the concept of Wu Wei is the most common thing that I see with the Gita, like that you see in the Gita, the importance of inaction. But the Gita is also about acting. So there is a difference there. There's the concept of Wu Wei is incorporated into the Gita, but the idea of acting from your core and the idea of action with purpose and intent, I don't think that that's as strong in the Tao Te Ching. Those are a couple of thoughts. A little scattered, but I was thinking about it. You're muted.
Thank you, Joe. Yesterday you were saying that the concept of Atma you find very interesting. The important thing is that, see, each of these works have a integrity of its own. So while it is useful to see the similarities, it is also useful to kind of look at it as a system and seeing how does it function? How does it function? And what does it look like in action in you? Because it is not, we're not talking about just like a comparative academic study of things. We're trying to use principles for our life. And it's a different constellation of concepts that each of them have. So yesterday I did not focus on what you said. I kind of moved to a different topic, but I want to say like concept of Atma and the way in which Atma and Brahma is there in the Indian context is very different. It has a very different feel. There are like analogous things, like there is the like Holy Spirit as being analogous, and God the Father as being analogous to Brahma, and Holy Spirit as being analogous to Atma, but it is only analogous. It is, but the characteristics are very different. Like for example, Atma is always yours. You always have Atma. You might forget it, but you have Atma. So there are, and the way in which they interact, etc., are all very different. So it is important to kind of understand each of them on its own terms. And that's why I like the way in which we have done is that we have taken the time, 200 hours going through Bhagavad Gita, similar amount of time through Tao Te Ching, similar amount of time through Gospel of John. And that is very useful because each of these works have that. So that's what I would say. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything else. Like the thing I find about Tao Te Ching is that Tao Te Ching is very much focused on action, and it is very much focused on kind of balance, the idea of balance, which is very big in Chinese thinking. It is not big in Indian thinking or the Western thinking. You don't think in terms of, you think in terms of God, God the Father, God the Son, Holy Spirit, or you think of in terms of Atma and Brahma in that. And there is no concept of balance here, is that you're simply trying, so the fundamental concepts, there will be aspects of dealing with balance, but it's not a central concept. Whereas in Tao Te Ching, it's, in Chinese thought, that's a central concept. So there are things like that. The expression is very different. One of the observations that Yogeshwar was making, I don't remember when, is that the Western mind starts by seeing things and then it puts it into words. So, it's always come and see. Whenever there is anything, come and see, and then you get the words for it. The way in which the Indian mind goes is that it uses words, at the end of which you have darshan, or you see. So see is like the end part. That was a really fascinating observation. So there are very, very fundamental differences, but deep similarities. All right. Anybody else wants to chime in on anything? Joe, go ahead.
I'll just say really quickly is that they're addressing, I feel like, the same problem in our own unique way. And so that's one of the differences, like that they just have different ways of approaching. And I appreciate the fact that we're able to look at all three. I think it's very, very powerful to look at things from that perspective.